Emily was only 20 years old, but she had already endured many difficulties and painful memories. Quite recently, she got a job at a gas station as an operator. The girl grew up in an orphanage and was reluctant to recall that time. She didn't have many friends within the children's collective where there was an atmosphere of competition rather than friendship. But she wasn't an orphan from birth. She remembered her mother with whom she lived until the age of 6. After her mother's death, for 2 years, she was brought up by her drunken stepfather. The man was rarely sober. He would explode at the slightest noise and beat his young stepdaughter. After the death of his wife, he stopped taking care of the little girl at all. He didn't feed her because he lost his job, and the money was only enough for alcohol. Luckily, some caring neighbors who witnessed the indifferent attitude of the stepfather towards the girl called the social services. They assessed the state of the dwelling and living conditions and noted that the stepfather couldn't string 2 words together to justify himself for the starving stepdaughter and the mess in the apartment. Soon, they placed her in an orphanage. Life under the supervision of teachers and professionals, in warmth and with regular meals, was still better than living with an alcoholic who could beat the baby at any moment for no reason. Later, life punished him. During a fire caused by a cigarette that he himself forgot to put out, he died. After many years of living in an orphanage, she graduated but didn't receive a small apartment from the state. It was a simple old apartment with creaky doors and overly vigilant neighbors who were wary of the orphan. They were afraid that she was from a disadvantaged background and would bring criminal personalities into the apartment, so they always watched her movements. Receiving the apartment didn't help Michelle Anderson, the only caregiver with whom the girl had a trusting relationship. The woman herself was a mother of many children, so she treated the pupils as her own. The short and cute girl had never been unloved, and she reached out to the woman in return. Since then, they have been friends and shared all their difficulties, and now for 2 years, she has been leading an independent life. But she didn't forget to call Michelle periodically and visit her, and the woman was always happy about her former pupils' visits. The other caregivers also treated her well and often invited her to those holidays when a person especially needs family. It was difficult for an orphan to find a job. Even the dirtiest and most grueling job required education. In HR, they looked at the girl as if she was unfit for any responsibilities. Sometimes, after going through another grueling internship for which they didn't pay her a penny, they would refuse to hire her. For a long time, she wandered from organization to organization, offered her services, and assured at interviews that she would definitely cope and become a responsible employee, but they were still dissatisfied. Eventually, she managed to get a job as an operator at a gas station. The girl was given overalls, trained, and immediately hired since they were short on workers, and so they welcomed everyone willing to endure the working conditions. However, despite the success, she was embarrassed by the behavior of the boss, Brian. He owned a chain of gas stations and had a weakness for pretty girls. His wife and 2 children didn't stop him from indulging in various pleasures and fleeting affairs. She kept catching his lustful gazes on herself. Sometimes the man could walk past her and touch her hair, waist, and hip. "What are you doing?" She shrank from him, but Brian's gaze didn't have a drop of regret. "Why are you so scared? This is natural attraction between a man and a woman. Inevitable," he would say. "If you hired me hoping for something more," the girl flared up, "I'm just saying you have many opportunities to get yourself a promotion. Just say it and I won't refuse you." The man winked playfully and returned to his business. Every time after such encounters with the boss, the girl tried to hide from him, to get rid of the terrible feeling. She didn't get along with the team either. She didn't get into conflicts, try to fit into the society, pick up jokes and habits. She wanted them to accept her. In addition to her, 2 other girls worked there, Ashley and Jessica. Both had been working at the gas station for several years and were well versed in the business, while for her what seemed incredibly difficult and tiring was routine for them. Her colleagues could do it with their eyes closed without fearing anything. Ashley and Jessica were so confident in their impunity that behind the boss's back, they engaged in some schemes. They didn't fill the gas tanks fully when refueling cars. They did this every shift, and by the end of the day, both scammers had a decent amount of money in their hands, but she didn't want to join their dishonest activities. She worked diligently, living month to month on her salary without other ways of earning on the side, illegally. The thought of stealing was unpleasant to her. Because of her colleagues, she also began to treat them with apprehension and didn't trust them much. "What a fool you are," the girls laughed at her. "Who needs your honesty? The clients won't become poorer because of such amounts, but it's nice for you." "I can't do that. Then I'll torment myself for such an act," she said directly. But they didn't want to listen to the colleagues' edifications. "Here you are slaving away and no one will thank you for it or give you a bonus. Only Brian is always happy to indulge," Jessica laughed mockingly. But she continued working and getting an honest salary that she lived on. A homeless kitten once wandered over to the gas station, soaked and frozen. The girl took pity on him and led him inside the building, fed him, warmed him up, and after the shift took him to her apartment. It became more fun to live with the kitten. It was nice when after the working day someone was waiting for you at home. A few months passed, she finally settled into the job and worked faster, with joy. Only here, Brian kept coming over with a gloomy face, complaining that the gas station was bringing less and less profit. "I don't know what the problem is," he complained. "The staff work round the clock, so many cars pass through per day, but we barely avoid going into minus. If it keeps going like this, I'll have to sell my brainchild. So, my dears, while it's not too late, start looking for a new job so as not to be left without money later." But Ashley and Jessica thought it was a pity. From their eyes, it was clear that they weren't at all eager to have to learn new schemes and tricks at a different place. They didn't even think that they themselves could have damaged the business with their careless actions. Everything happened as Brian had suggested, and in just a month and a half, the new owner of the gas station chain was some Texan whom no one had seen face to face yet, so they didn't know what to expect. Brian was listed as acting director and oversaw the team. She decided that it couldn't get worse with him than it already was, and so she decided not to leave her job and not chase elusive hopes for a better life. One day, a red old Chevrolet car driven by a bearded old man in a plaid shirt drove up to the gas station. "Wow, what a rarity," Ashley laughed, and Jessica supported her. Even Brian was interested in the reason for such loud laughter, and he could sometimes linger with them for small talk. The old man got out of the car, patted his pockets, and suddenly grabbed his head. "Oh my goodness, I left my wallet at home. What a disaster, dear girls. Help an old man who has completely lost his mind." She looked at him with pity. There were tears in the old man's eyes. "There's nothing left in the tank. I can't get out or get anywhere, I can't. Please pour some gas on credit, I beg you. I urgently need to get to the airport to meet my son. He will pay for everything on the way back. He's well off, I beg you. I'm in such a situation. I urgently need to. We haven't seen each other for 15 years, and here I am. Such an old fool got so carried away." "What airport, Grandpa?" Jessica said. "You have such a wreck. You probably decided to fill up for free and then we have to pay out of our own pocket." "I swear, everything will be returned. Just help me. I'm putting my wedding ring as collateral, so you don't doubt that I'll be back. It's gold. It'll cover all expenses." He tried to take it off, but it didn't work. It had almost grown into his skin from so many years of wearing. "My wife died long ago. I found this ring in memory of her, but now I don't need her. Take it, girls. I have no one left except my only son. I want to see him so much I'll soon forget what he looks like. Stop!" She ran up to him as she could no longer watch her colleagues mock the poor old man who was ready to give away the last memory of his wife just to beg for mercy. "You don't need to give me your ring. I'll fill up the full tank myself. God bless you. I'll handle everything on the return trip down to the last penny." The old man bowed to her. "You don't need anything, Grandpa. Go in peace." "What are you doing?" Brian yelled. Deduct it from my salary. I don't have anything to pay you with. Or else you are squandering our gas right and left to anyone. Do you do this often? Maybe it's because of you that we went bankrupt, that everything was sold because of you. Don't make things up, Brian, she said, and was struck herself by the firmness of her voice. And if you want to blame me for something, present evidence. Her colleagues followed the rebellious girl with surprised eyes. No one expected her to be capable of this. Even Brian didn't find what to answer. In the end, he still didn't find any evidence and couldn't just blame anyone. Proof was needed. 40 minutes later, the old man in the Chevrolet returned as promised. Only now he wasn't alone, but together with a handsome businessman in a suit who turned out to be his son, who he had proudly and reverently told about. "Hello," the man greeted sonorously. "My name is Kevin Mitchell. I'm the new owner of your gas station chain." Everyone present was stunned. Ashley and Jessica, at the sight of the pleasant young boss, already regretted that they had rushed to find a new job. They were single and hoped they might interest the handsome man. "Oh, we didn't expect to meet you so soon," Jessica sang and went out from behind the numb colleagues. They surrounded the new boss and began asking about him. It turned out that Kevin had worked in California in the tech industry for a long time and succeeded in the business. It turned out he was very capable and by the age of 25 had earned his first million. At the moment, he was a coveted bachelor, but was in no hurry to tie the knot. All this time, the man devoted himself to studying and building his own business. "And this is my father, Richard Mitchell," the man presented the old man whom they had already seen. Kevin hadn't been in his hometown for 15 years and hadn't seen his parents for just as long. To get from the airport home, he could have called a taxi, but decided to ask his father to pick him up. Richard was pleased to provide his son with this service. The old Chevrolet didn't even embarrass him, on the contrary. His own native father had taught him to drive on it since childhood, and he still wanted to note that his father singled out one employee who really helped him out today. "Miss, may I ask you to come closer?" The girl didn't expect a direct appeal to her, but didn't lose her composure and approached the new boss. "Thank you for not leaving my old father in trouble when he needed me, and I was far away. I'm not the best example of a son, and today you did what I should have done. I'm glad you happily met with your dad," the girl said. The very next day, Richard completely changed the politics of work at the gas stations when he got down to business. It was decided to replace the entire staff, leaving only the conscientious and smiling Samantha. Having seen her work, the man even promoted her to manager. Now the girl was in charge of several stations in the region. Richard loved to drive up to the gas station in his Chevrolet to see Emily. "I gave my son a daughter-in-law," he said jokingly, "but I didn't reward him with wit. Just think, Emmy, to overlook such a bride as you. Where does that workaholic look?" he grumbled. "Your son is an amazing person," she politely replied. Deep down, for a long time already, she had cherished sympathy for her boss. She wasn't embarrassed that the man was 11 years older. The girl didn't want to yet admit that she was already accepting courtship from Kevin. Recently, they became a couple, but still kept it secret even from their loved ones. And the man had a secret from his beloved, too. He was already planning to propose and didn't doubt that she would say yes. In a week, she and Kevin shocked Richard with news of the wedding. The old man was happy and hugged his children. Subscribe to our channel and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one.